Okay, in this video, we're going to finish talking about the basics of C++ programming. Okay, so we have some examples that we did last time, and we'll do some other things. Okay, so the first thing to do we're going to talk about is the increment and decrement commands. Okay, let's do this. Just call this test.cpp, something like that. So again, I have to do my include IOStream, no matter what I'm doing. I want to use my using namespace standard. I have to have, if I'm going to run it, I have to have an int main. I need to have my return 0 and close that out. Okay, so that's the basics. Okay, and again, I would need a comment block, but this time I'm not going to do that. Okay, so if we have the following code, we can have like set two integers, x and y, the semicolon. Okay, if I set x equal to 5, I'm assigning the value of 5 to x. I can say y is equal. If I want to increment x, okay, I can either do a plus plus x, okay, which is going to increment x, but it's going to increment it before it does this assignment, okay. Let's do a z as well. Just see what the values are here. And I could do z is equal to x plus plus. There we go. Okay, and let's just see out what we get here. So we see out, we're going to get x, y, z. But that's going to run them all together. Let's double check that to see. Okay, so let me do my G++, test of CPP. Again, you should use a -o, but I'm using it out. Yeah, it keeps them together. Okay, so we see the values here, but I need to change it up a little bit. So let me just put a space. And then y. And then another space. And that should fix that. Okay. But let me go ahead and set x back to 5 both times to show the difference here. Okay, so the first time it should set y on the assignment statement. It takes x, it increases 1 to make it the 5, make it 6, set that to y. The second time it is going to take x, which is equal to 5, set it equal to z, and then increment. In both cases, x is equal to 6, but in the second case, we should get 6, 6, 5, I think. See if that's correct. So we do that. We do that. Yeah, 6, 6, 5. Okay. The book has some more examples if you want. We usually, if you're just dealing with one variable, it doesn't matter which way you do it. Okay. The decrement works the same way. It subtracts by 1. Okay. So nothing too exciting there. Okay. The next section talks about the output. We can just take a look at this. Okay. So we've looked at this before, but let's give us a little more detail here. So basically, we're going to have our cout. It sets it to the standard output, okay, which in this case is going to be the screen. Okay. We're going to have some expression here or some kind of manipulator. Okay. So we're going to have something in there that's going to allow us to get a string output out. Okay. So a manipulator would be something like Indo. Okay. Which is going to send the new line character. Okay. And when we're doing these, it's useful to know, the book has a little table of some commands that you typically see and how the spaces go and all that. Let's see what page that's on. It's on page 77. Okay, so these are the escape sequences. Okay, so again, if I would do a cout, hello, and then do a \n, and then do a world. And if I run this, okay, it did nothing. Why did it do nothing? It's very interesting. Oh, because I didn't escape it. Oh, no, I didn't. I didn't put an N. I typoed. That should work. Let's see if this works. You do videos live. Never know what you're going to get. There we go. Now it works. So you see that by doing the backslash N, it just put a new line character there. And we'll see this a lot. The other way we could have done this, to make it a little neater looking, I could put in a backslash T here instead of a space. And what that's going to do is it's going to give us some tabs. Okay. So if you have data with different numbers, you can do that. Okay. And you see that spaced that out nicely now. So even if we had data that were bigger, it would still line everything up. Okay. So the tabs are important. But the other ones there, you can see in the book, there's the new line character, the tab, there's a backspace, there's a return, there's a backslash, if you want to actually print out the backslash. And if you ever want to print specifically a single quote, you can put a backslash in front of that. So if I wanted to put a real quote here, I could put a backslash quote, and then it would actually make it a literal. Okay. So there's some examples in there in the book that you can look at. Okay. Then it talks about preprocessor directives, which we've already talked about a little bit. Okay. And then it just goes through basically creating a program. So not really a whole lot new there. Okay. There's some examples they go through, how statements work, how we're going to declare things. We're going to have expressions that do things with our with the input, things like that. Okay. And then the last thing that we'll talk about in this chapter, I think it's the last thing, maybe. The last thing is going to be, one of the last things is going to be on debugging, okay, and fixing your errors, okay? So whenever you're doing programs, you're going to have errors sometimes. There's no way to avoid that, okay? And C++ sometimes does a good job of telling what those errors are. So let's say I do this, for example, and when I go to run it, tells me an error. Okay. So C++ has got a lot better than it used to be. So it's telling us. So what is it telling you here? Okay. In function it main, we only have one function, so that's where it's at. In line 8 and character 10, it expects there to be a semicolon before the X, before this next X, the X that's in green. Okay. So that's telling us pretty much what the error is. Okay. So if I can go to my program, and if you notice down here at the bottom, it's telling me what I'm on. I'm on line 8, okay? And if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, close, 10's at the end there, it's telling me I need a semicolon before I get to this X on line 9, okay? Pretty straightforward. If I was trying to do something like this, okay, I'm printing out something that I don't have a value for. Okay, I run it. Oh, it tells me what line 12, position 11, more or less, that this X, it was not declared in this scope. Okay, so I'm using a variable before I declare it. Okay, so that's what that does for you. So that's kind of the first way to get errors. Okay, and some of this, a lot of it's very similar to what you would do in Python. So if your program's blowing up and you don't know why, okay, you can often put in print statements just to see what's going on. Okay, so let's say if I came down to here, well, we don't know how to do this yet, so we can't do it. But if we were doing something and it wasn't making sense how it was working, we could print out all the individual parts. We could print out, we'll see later as we go on, we can print like, if you have a function, is it ever even making it inside the function? We can have little print statements that made it to the function, okay, things like that. So that's kind of the way things that you can go, okay? So, and again, when you're looking at your program, the things you have to think about, when it starts running, it's going to go to int main, it's going to go to the first line. It's going to go in a sequence until you hit some structure like an if statement that tells it to go somewhere else. Okay. And by trying to think through what's happening, it can help you to debug it. Okay. Kind of a new tool for debugging. And the syllabus talks about generative AIs and ChatGPT and all those things in particular. You can use it to help you debug. Okay. You do not want ChatGPT to write your programs. I will most likely be able to tell, and it's considered cheating. Okay. But if you've written a program and it just doesn't work, it's blowing up and you've tried everything and it doesn't work out, you can't figure out what's wrong, you can copy your entire program to ChatGPT, for example, and say, what's wrong with my code? And it will point out some things that could be wrong with your code. It's another tool. I wouldn't start there, but if you're really stuck, things get more complicated, it can be helpful. Okay. But there's also, we'll talk later about some debugging tools that allow you to go through step by step through your program, set breakpoints, all kinds of stuff. Okay. But for now, just try to follow the flow. And the thing to remember, this can be helpful when you're debugging, your computer program or the computer is going to do exactly what you tell it to do. Okay. So if it's doing something wrong, if you're expecting 20 and it gives you -50, then you told it to do that. There's no other explanation. You didn't mean to tell it to do that, but you did. So you have to think, well, if it's getting a -50, where would it gotten that at? And you can kind of back through your program to see where the error is oftentimes. Okay. But, the computers are pretty basic. They do what you tell them to do. So that's important. Okay. There's a section at the end about the program style. And, a lot of that is individualized. I will say that if you work someplace as a programmer, they will give you a style guide and they'll tell you exactly how to do things. Okay. We'll develop that a little bit in this class as we get more complicated. But for now, don't name all your variables X and Y and Z like I just did. Give your variables reasonable names. Give your functions, when we get to that, reasonable names. Space things out nicely. Make sure you have comments. That's kind of where we're at. We may add more as we go along, things that I want you to do. But that's the basic idea. Okay. But yeah, again, if you work somewhere, they will certainly have a lot more for you to say about that. Okay. There's a program example here in converting length from feet and inches into centimeters. You can go through those. Those are pretty much in every chapter. And there's a couple here, at least two, maybe more, just two. Those are worthwhile because they give you a good idea of how to develop a program. Okay. The other thing that I will say, any homework that we do, whether it's in class or one of the ones I give you to work on at home, let me know if you're struggling, and I don't mind at all to put out a video where I solve the problem. Okay. I'll do as many of those as you want, as long as people are looking at them. Sometimes I make them and people don't look at them, in which case I will quit doing them. But if you'll watch a video on the solution to a homework problem after it's due, I will have no problem in doing that. Programming builds. It's kind of like a math class, in that the things we do this week we'll still be doing at the end of the semester. Anytime you program in C++, you're going to be doing variables and doing math and doing CNs and COUTs. So it's important that you get stuff. Don't just say, well, I don't get this now, but I'll do something later. No, it's going to keep coming back to haunt you until you figure it out. Okay. As always, if you're in class having struggles, watch the videos before class, raise your hand. I can help you. Hopefully we'll have a student assisting us in the class and help you as well. So if you have questions, as always, let me know.